Well, I'd like to introduce Jan Lutz, who has kindly graced our halls here with her work. And she is a full-time artist, but she's also a teacher, and she's been actively studying art as well all this time, if that's what you call going to Italy and painting.
Well, that was a long time ago.
But she is a graduate from Edinburgh University with a degree in art ed, and she's won awards for her work, including, and she's also shown 3 times here at the Crary before. In all 3 shows that we've had for the Pennsylvania Watercolor Society, she's had work, and actually this very painting was in this very spot. How many years ago was that?
2010, yeah.
Okay, 3 years ago. So it's nice to see her work back again. She's a signature member of the Pennsylvania Watercolor Society, as well as being a member of the American Women Artists and Meadville Council on the Arts. And she and her partner Dennis run the Kelly Run Gallery in Meadville.
Cambridge Springs.
Oh, is it Cambridge Springs?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yes, that's
I
okay.
had that in my head, but
That's okay.
correct me on everything else.
That's all right.
Take it
That's
away.
fine. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. It wasn't the best weather to come out in, but it was nice. We got a little break. I'm just really pleased to have my paintings hanging in this beautiful gallery, and thankful for the opportunity to share my work with a new viewing public. I'll start off by saying talking about my work is really not my thing, so I thought maybe I could just answer a couple of the most common questions that we hear at our gallery or wherever. People often ask if I work from photos, and generally it depends on the subject actually. If I'm doing an animal or a bird, then for obvious reasons, yes, I definitely need those photographs. When I do landscapes, it depends. You know, I usually use a combination of pictures to get the best composition and the best colors and the best lighting. It's just, sometimes I work from my imagination, a combination of my imagination and memories, plus some reference photos, just for a bit of detail. With the figures, yes, I do usually use the photographs for different reasons. A lot of the poses that I like would be hard for a model to hold for a long period of time. And people are generally not willing to pose for a painting. Now, I've done a lot of sketches from life. Quite a few years ago, another artist friend and I started a group that met to draw people from life. And we met every week, and we took turns bringing models. So that was a wonderful experience, great practice in developing drawing skills. And that went on for quite a few years. We ended up probably with, from the few of us that started, probably to over a dozen different artists. So that was a very good experience. And I was thinking back, when I first did some serious drawing of people was right after college. One of my first jobs was as an activities director in a large nursing home in Meadville. And one of my duties, which I loved, was taking photos of people in their activities. They put out a newsletter every month, so they published some of these pictures. So I took lots of unposed close-ups and did a series of drawings of them, and I just really enjoyed drawing them. They had so much character in their faces. So from there, when I got serious about doing watercolor, which was about 20 years ago, my daughter was high school age then, or almost high school age. And so I started using her as a model. And she was a great model. She was very natural. She had taken a lot of dance classes, and she was very graceful in her poses. And there are, I think, 5 paintings of her. The one is with the kitten there. That is one of her, and the rest are probably out in the hallway. Let me see if I have them written down.
Is that one right behind you as well?
No, I'll talk about them too. One of them is called Dressing in My Own Skin. That's right out in the hallway. It's just a small piece. That is my daughter. And the one a little further down called Timelines, where she's in front of the mountains. And, well, I counted 5, but I think that's only 4. But anyway, I did a lot of paintings of her. Tried to change. I wasn't necessarily going for portraits, and she changed her hairdo or whatever. I changed the color of her hair so she would look different clothing and so on. These girls that I've also painted a lot, they're daughters of friends of ours that used to live in Cambridge Springs. So I've done quite a few of them. The oil painting out in the hallway called Trio, that is all 3 of the girls when they were young. And then when they got older, some of them appear in some of these paintings here. This one and the one with the moon there. And, the one called the Wicker Chair over there in the corner. That is also one of the girls. And I think one of the shrink wrap prints, little girl with a violin, is also. They have unusual names: Bahia, Tahara, and Anissa. So they were great models to have. Let's see, what else was. The other question that I often get asked is, where do I get the models? Which, of course, I've explained somewhat. Just from a variety of sources, friends and neighbors. We have a lot of Amish neighbors, although I'm careful, I don't do too many of them, and I'm careful not to show their faces. I know I try to respect their beliefs. Sometimes it's hard not to. There's just some great scenes with the people in them, but. And students of my husband from Edinburgh University. A lot of those girls I took to the drawing group that we had. Let's see, what else was I going to say? My favorite figurative paintings are the ones that are set in the natural world. That's something I would like to develop further. I just really like the interaction of people with nature and the whole idea of, our place in the natural world. Question? Yes?
The titles, some of them are, I guess, kind of obvious, and some of them are not. Do you have the title in mind when you're doing the work, or is it afterwards?
It's afterwards, and sometimes it's tough to come up with a title, but my husband is good at helping me out. He's good with words. So, and sometimes it's confusing. It's like, now which painting is that when I get into more conceptual titles.
Living in Cambridge Springs, have you done any prison ministry artwork with the females?
No, I haven't. I've thought about it because I do like to do that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of substitute teaching in the public schools, and after
Why did you get a blessing for that?
And I've also volunteered at another nursing home teaching a painting class. And the painting out in the hallway, Cataract Jack, he was one of the students in that class. I did a couple of him. One of them I sold to his niece. Yes.
Could you talk about your palette and your paper and your paint?
Okay, sure. Papers, there are about 4 different papers that I like to use. One of them is Arches, which is a very good all-around paper that I recommend to people when they're starting out. Another one I like is the Saunders Waterford paper, which I've read is the official paper of the British Watercolor Society. It's a really nice, I like it especially for landscapes, for skies and things like that, but for figures too. The other one I like is a handmade paper that's very inexpensive, has a lot of character. I've seen it by different names, Indian Village paper or something. It's made in that part of the world, in India or Pakistan or, I don't know, in that part of the world, I guess. And then there's another paper I like to use that is not a watercolor paper. It's called Bristol board. It's more of a drawing support. And it comes in a, well, the one I like is called the plate surface. And it's very smooth. And it behaves totally different than watercolor paper. Normally, when I do a watercolor, I start with a wash, a wet and wet technique. And a lot of them, you can see some of that showing through, like in, for instance, in that one. A lot of this was original wash, and then I developed the roots and the figure and so on. There are challenges to working that way. You know, sometimes you don't have your light areas where you want them. But there are tricks you can use. You can use some white gouache or you know, different things. You can lift some of the color some of the time. But back to this Bristol board, you cannot layer with that because if you go over something, it'll just wipe right off. So it's kind of fun, and the one right behind Tom there, that is done on Bristol board. You can get some very sharp edges and some very intense colors too. I think the other, oh, if fishes were horses, the one as you walk in, that is also done on Bristol board. So it's kind of a challenge to work with. If you don't get something right, you kind of have to start over. But I like all the blotchy, drippy things that it does. It kind of helps keep me loose. Other questions?
Follow up, where do you get the Arches? I know we can get, but the other papers
Yeah, I order them online.
online?
Yeah.
Just Google the name of the paper.
Right, right. Well, I have a few sources that I like. You know, I've done all the comparison shopping, and Dick Blick has good prices, and they have just about everything imaginable. Jerry's Artorama has really good prices if you can buy in quantity. And Daniel Smith, I love their watercolors. I use mostly Daniel Smith watercolors.
If anybody has any more questions, you can find Jan. Otherwise, we're going to move down into the next gallery. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.